So we are talking in chapter 2 about actually getting out our calculators and how do we start computing gross wages, because you can't run a payroll until you figure out what the gross is, and then you take out all the taxes and withholdings. So we've got to do a little background work before we get our calculators out. So today, hopefully, I'm going to get through 1, 2, and 3. So let's unpack this a little bit further. I talked about this last week, the Fair Labor Standards Act, right? And that was passed as part of the New Deal in the 30s under FDR. And there's two basic kinds of coverage. One is enterprise coverage, and that's if you've got, if you're engaged in any sort of interstate commerce. Anyone know what interstate commerce is? Between something crosses state lines. Raw materials coming in, exporting product going out, right? So the little family orchard up on Finley Point on the Flathead that picks 15 trees worth of cherries and sells them by the side of the road, are they engaged in interstate commerce? Probably not, unless somebody then takes the cherries to Idaho, right? So they're generally, that would generally be an exempt company. So, and then additionally, you have to have 500,000 or more in annual gross sales. So what I'm saying here is not every company is covered by the FLSA. They've got to, they're either covered under the enterprise coverage, and then the next one I'll show you is the second kind of coverage. Or individual employee coverage. So for example, I am a driver for the, so the enterprise coverage doesn't, I don't have the 500,000 in sales. Let's say I've got a small cherry operation. It does go back and forth and my cherries get shipped to Idaho, but I don't do $500,000 a year. So I'm not covered under enterprise coverage, but the guy or gal that drives the truck that moves the cherries across state lines, she's in a fringe occupation, and now the annual revenue requirement drops to $225,000. Really, the long and short of this is most companies are covered by the FLSA, but lots of little small family businesses are actually exempt. And as we dig into this, that means that they're really not required to pay overtime or minimum wage or comply with child labor laws. Okay. The reality of that is nobody's going to get anybody to work for them for less than minimum wage, no overtime. Right? But just being aware that the way the laws work, because some companies are exempt from it. Okay, and then it defines employee and employer, and I mean that's, you know, that's pretty intuitive. This is really what I want you to take away from this slide, this bottom bullet. We're going to see this terminology over and over and over and over and over in the class. The IRS will come in, so the issue is, like, say I own a software engineering company, and you guys all write code for me, and you're scattered all over the country. And you write code for me, and I treat you as an independent contractor, not an employee. Why would I do that? What would be the benefit to me of doing that? I don't have to offer FMLA. You're not my employee. I don't have to pay what? Any of the taxes on the employer's side of that table. I don't have to pay OSCI, I don't have to pay HI, I don't have to pay food, I don't have to pay SUD, I don't have to pay workers' comp. I don't have to put you on my health insurance plan, I don't have to cover you under my 401k. Right, you're just independent contractors. So that's always going to be a win for me. But you're like, whoa, you have behavioral control over me. Right, so you tell me exactly when I have to have my code in and what that'll look like and what format and you know, da 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 da. You have financial control over me in the sense that you're, this is my primary gig. In other words, I'm so committed to what I do for you that I don't really have time for extraneous work. And really the relationship looks like being an employee and an employer. Well, this is a whole, and we'll dial into this way deeper, but just for your first little peek at this, that's really what we're talking about here, is trying to differentiate employee-employer from independent contractor hiring agents. So those are two very different relationships. Okay, FLSA and domestics, domestic help. This is somebody, I'm sure you guys all deal with this, nannies, gardeners, chauffeurs, etc. Right? So not a big deal in Montana, but a huge deal in urban areas. Okay? Lots of people have one or more of these. How are they treated under FLSA? If they work more than 8 hours a week for you or earn more than $2,100 in a year, they are considered a regular old employee. You've got a W-2 them. You've got to withhold taxes from their checks. You've got to cover them under workers' comp. You've got to be included as they're an employee. The only exception to that, it was overtime, is if you've got your nanny that lives in your house, a living domestic. I guess your cook could live in the house too. This law is not complied with oftentimes, and it sort of rolls into a whole issue of undocumented folks that work here as domestics, and I mean, it's kind of a complex relationship. But if you're complying with the law, you're getting their I-9 from them, and you're treating them like you would any other employee if they make more than $2,100 in a year. Okay, what is minimum wage? Right now, I believe, somebody do a quick check on this for me, because when I came out of my mouth the other day, it did not feel right. But I think federal minimum wage is still locked at $7.15 an hour.
That was the first thing that popped up for federal contractors.
Federal contractors, okay, yeah, just federal minimum wage. I think that's still $7.15 an hour. In Montana, it's $8.15 an hour. $7.25, excuse me, thank you, $7.25. Federal minimum wage, $7.25, holy crap.
Hasn't changed in years.
Oh, yeah, at least. And if you do the math on that, that's barely $290 gross a week. Okay? So you have to pay the higher of whatever the state or the federal minimum wage is. And I think we talked last week about how some states actually have minimum wages that are less than $7.25 an hour, but then the employer has to pay the higher. Okay, so and it's not just the rate of pay. You can include a bunch of other things in that calculation. Well, like what? Obviously, commissions. Non-discretionary bonuses. So do you know what non-discretionary means? What's discretionary? I mean, huh? No, discretionary is like if I can choose on a monthly basis whether or not I pay you a bonus. So I look at my profit loss at the end of the month. I'm like, oh, we did great. You guys rock. I'm gonna give you each $150. That's a discretionary bonus. A non-discretionary bonus is you guys all work for a union, and they've negotiated with me as your employer that if you meet X production quota, then I have to pay you 2% of my net income. Okay, that's non-discretionary. I don't get to make a choice. It's in our employment contract. So if that's the situation, whatever that amount is gets to be included in my calculation whether or not I'm getting to minimum wage. Differential pay, and then this was pretty crucial, reasonable cost of housing and meals, but only if it's for the employee's benefit and he or she voluntarily accepts it. So let me give you an example. So if I own a peach farm in Georgia and it's super remote, there's no way I'm going to get workers to drive back and forth every day from Atlanta because it's 130 miles. So I put a policy, right? Is that for my benefit or your benefit? That's for my benefit as the employer, because I couldn't get employees if I didn't put a policy, right? So that's not included in your minimum wage calculation. And that doesn't show up on your W-2. Go ahead. Well, it depends. Is it for the employee's benefit or the employer's benefit? Like per diem for meals and housing? Per diem, yeah. And that would be, well, I guess you really have to dig into it. Am I doing that to incent you to work for me, in which case that would be for your benefit? Or is there no other option for me to get employees? In which case it would be for my benefit. So you really kind of have to dig in and get the particulars of every case, and I'll. You would have to talk to an accountant about it. The way per diems work, are you talking about travel per diem? Travel per diem. So if you write off on your tax return your travel as an employee, then the W-2 amount is going to cancel that out. It's going to show up as a gross on your W-2, and that's going to cancel. If you don't write it off, you've got to ask your employer if he or she has an accountable plan. Okay. So these are just the different things that go into minimum wage. Okay, other types of compensation not included in your regular rate of pay. Thank you very much for being the top salesperson for the quarter at my RV sales company. I'm going to give you a trip to, we used to say the Bahamas. Have you guys seen the pictures? Unbelievably tragic, really terrifying. I'm going to give you a trip to Key West, and that's a gift, a reward for service. So that's actually, I can shove that into my minimum wage calculation. Profit sharing, vacation, holiday, sick days, all that. Vehicle, tool, uniform, allowances, that's all going to go into my minimum wage calc. Okay. So it's not just your rate of pay. Oh, here it is right here. Current minimum wage is $7.25, established with the Fair Minimum Wage Act of 2007. Yes, so it hasn't changed for 12 years. And you'll hear like a lot of the political hopefuls for the presidency talking about universal minimum wages. $12 an hour, $15 an hour. So what are pros and cons to that? I mean, do you think anybody can live on this? It's certainly not here. Maybe in Superior. Housing in Superior.
Would people be living in that Bay Area in New York?
Well, no, I'm just trying to say, is there anywhere in Montana you can live on $7.25 an hour? Anybody from the tiny town, you live in Hot Springs on that? I don't think so. No. Okay. So, what's the pros and cons of taking our minimum wage to $13, $14, $15 an hour? We have lots of politicians talking about that. If all of a sudden I have to pay you guys $15 an hour, and I'm paying half of you $10 an hour because you're entry level, and the other half $12 because you're mid level, and I have to move everybody up to 15, what are my $12 an hour people going to want? More than 15 because they're at a different level than the other folks. And so all of that, I'm going to have to somehow capture in what? The cost of whatever it is I sell. So now all of a sudden you're $15 an hour.
Or you have to fire people.
Or I'm going to have to let people go. Okay, so that's, again, a very, very low-level analysis of it. You would never do it immediately. It would have to be incremental so that it didn't, you know, any huge change has to be incremental. The flip side is, what are the social costs? If any of you have been to like Seattle or San Francisco, or those are the two that stick out of my mind lately, what's happening in these big cities with lots of really wealthy people? So much homelessness. So much homelessness. So much destitution on the streets. And the social cost of that, and hard dollar cost too, for the city management standpoint, is staggering. So how do we balance that? I'm just throwing out some pros and cons. I don't have the magic answer.
Wouldn't it also, like when you were saying, inflate the dollar? Just If everybody's getting paid the same, wouldn't what we cost now just double the cost?
Well, that's what I just said. All of a sudden, a gallon of milk's $8, so my $15 an hour job isn't buying me anything different from a purchasing point. What's so tough, I think, for a lot of people, like what's happening in, fill in the blank, including Missoula, is there's no shift in what people are making in this valley, but because it's been discovered and people can work, sitting in front of one of these from wherever, I mean, places that you couldn't get anybody to even look at to purchase are now, $250,000 homes. The mean price of a home in Missoula is now $311,000. But the money isn't changing here. The money's not changing. The purchasing power isn't changing. For those of us that have had homes here for a long time, it's like, oh, great, my house is now worth X. Well, what the heck does that matter? Because to get into anything else, that's, X times 10.
And also,
Two.
taxes.
Right, and so it's just a very, very difficult.
I know people selling a standard home in California, buying 3 really great homes here.
Yeah, and that's a big problem for Montanans. That's a big problem for Montanans. Changing the demographics. Okay, and then we have this whole concept called living wage, which when the politicians, I'm using that as a broad term, talk about raising the minimum wage, what they're really trying to do is elevate the minimum wage to living wage. It's a calculation that looks very different, obviously from here to Portland to Dallas, but it takes all your costs, your shelter, your transportation, your healthcare, your food, your basics, and says really what is the minimum that you need to survive in this market. And we tried to pass a living wage in Missoula probably a good 10 years now. And back then the calculation was like $11 and something an hour. I mean, now I bet you it would have to be 16, 17 bucks an hour to get for a living wage here. We did not pass it as a community. But there are 110, 112 cities that do have living wage ordinances. Now, what people don't understand is that it's not for all employers. It's for employers that have contracts with the government. Okay, so I paved roads, I did ditches to run sewer lines, I am an educational consultant, whatever. I've got a government contract. So why would that impact the economics of a place?
People want to do living jobs.
It shifts where people want to work. And there's a lot of trickle across and trickle up and trickle down ramifications of all of a sudden shifting the wage base for a group of people in the community. Okay, but it's trying to keep low wage workers' wages on track with the cost of living. Okay, this is a whole complicated situation. Anybody here work for tips? Okay. I definitely spent a lot of my life behind a bar and shuffling drinks and food to get through college and grad school. So before we look at all the numbers, let me just explain what the issue is. First off, in Montana, none of this applies. You have to get paid $8.15 an hour as a server in Montana. Okay? Most places, that is not a true statement. Minimum tipped wage is $2.13 an hour. That's all the employer has to pay you. But he or she has to prove that you've got tips that fill in the rest of that amount to get you to whatever is higher, state or federal minimum wage. So it's not that you're making less than minimum wage. It's just that the employer's only got to pay you a little tiny piece of it. So I went to grad school in Northern Cal. I spent my summers working in Lake Tahoe, right? And at Harrah's Casino. And even back then, the minimum tip wage was $2.13 an hour. So Harrah's would take 40 hours times $2.13 an hour, and then they would have to prove that my tips got me over minimum wage at the time, which back then doesn't matter, was not this number. They've got to prove right now that I make $290 a week, right? That's a 7 1/4 times 40. How do you convey to your employer what you make? Well, you it used to be you filled out a paper thing called I can't remember what it was called now, 4070 or something. Now for most servers, how do you get out of your till at night? You gotta, to even cash out at the night or check out at the end of the night, you gotta claim your checks, right? So there's this myth that you just should claim 8%. What does that mean? Anybody heard that? Yeah, 28% of your total sales are fine. Is that a true statement? No, it is not a true statement. The true statement is you have to claim what you made. They'll let you out of the software and check out at night if you plug in at least 8%. And I'll explain why in a second. But that is a complete piece of misinformation. Okay, let me just kind of keep working down this. So first let's look at, so I'm the employer, I own the Christchurch bar, I've got a gal working for me in Brickell, and I need to make sure that she's getting her minimum wage, right? But she worked 47 hours last week. What do I have to pay her till when she hits 40 hours? Time and a half, right? FLSA says time and a half. So, and she told me, hey, it's $750 less. So I have to do a calculation to make sure that she's gotten what she needs to get. So I've got to pay her 40 hours of minimum tip wage, I know that, right, that's $213. Then I have to make sure that she gets $10.88 an hour for that additional 7 hours, okay? Minus my tip credit. So I've got to gross her out $125.52.
So it's time and a half on the federal minimum, not the,
Time and a half, anything over the 40 hours.
but it's not the 213 time and a half.
So this is kind of hard to explain, I'm not quite doing my greater job. So 725 is what you have to get to. If I pay you $213 an hour, I get a tip credit of $512 an hour. So that's why I back the tip credit out from here. Okay, let's take a look at another couple examples. Okay, let's just do this one. So just you can write down in your notes. Let's say that my gal works at a tiny little coffee shop in, Kiowa, Montana. And at the end of the week, she's like, I made $43. But that's not a good example, we can be Montana. Let's make up a town, Kiowa, Idaho. At the end of the week, she goes, I made $43. How much do I have to pay her so first I'll calculate what her minimum tip wage would be. I've got to pay her $213 an hour. What's the very base I can give her? So she earns tips at $43. What's the very minimum I can give her? No, me personally, $213 an hour times 40, right? The very base amount I gotta get to her, $85.20, I think. Okay? So now your next calculation is to figure out, does that $85.20 plus her $43 of tips get her to the finish line of what she's gotta make in a week? No. So how much additional do I have to pay her? She made $43 in tips. I know I've gotta give her $85.20. You know that she's got to get to a total gross of what? $290. So my question is, what additional amount do I need to give her on top of the $85.20? That sounds about right. Okay, yeah. So that is the $85.20 and the $161.80. So I've got to cut her a check. I can't just cut her a check for $85.20 because she doesn't get to $290. So what do I have to give her? $247 in total. Okay, the next person works at the craps tables at the Bellagio in Vegas, and she makes $1,189. What do I need to pay her? Super easy answer.
Whatever she makes.
But how much of a gross paycheck do I need to cut my crafts dealer at the Bellagio if she made $1,189? $85.20. Right, because she's way over the two. Ally, ask a question.
I was trying to go
Okay. I will kind of say all this again on Friday, because it doesn't usually sink in the first time. But let's just lead with the basics. And you can't use Montana for an example, because how much do I have to pay you if you're a server in Montana? $8.15. But now, $8.15. But now let's just pretend we're in Nevada. I've got to pay you no matter how much, you made $10,000 in tips, what do I have to cut you a gross paycheck for? $85.20. $213 an hour times 40. I've got to cut you a check for that if you make $1 million in tips. If you don't make very much in tips, now I'm worried about whether I can get you to what number in a week? 290, i.e. $7.25 an hour times $40. I hope that you get over that 290 with your tips, because then I get a tip credit of $5.12 an hour. 725 minus 512 is 213.
Is this change in tip sharing?
So yeah, it does change with tip sharing. That is from a whole new wrench.
it also has a claim all these extra, right?
Okay, and then to finish up the discussion, because we haven't even gotten to 80%. When you go to cash out as a server and enter your tips in the computer that's going to accumulate and spit them out on your W-2 at the end of the year, how much do you have to put in? What you made. And if you think you're not going to get audited in this day and age where like 90% of all transactions are by card, so there's a trail. It's not like the old days where people were, typing the $10 under the plate, right? Okay. So what we need, we'll do all this again. So let me just put this down.